Howdy. This is Nilou, and I'm sure many of you are well aware of what it is Nilou does exactly, right? She's a bloom DPS, or a pseudo bloom DPS, kind of sort of slash enhanced, sort of weird. She takes your blooms and she makes them better, assuming you play into her kits as you're supposed to with Hydro and Dendro units. And I mean, I'm willing to bet the most people that have Nilou probably use her in such way. But see, I'm weird, and that way is too straightforward. So we're gonna do what you aren't supposed to do and use her as a crit DPS because that's funny. Now, also, it's because that way Barbara can maintain her role as the bloom DPS I use on my account. So we will be using Nilou as a crit DPS. And in this video, I wanted to go over a few different ways that you can use her as such, because it's a little awkward at times, I guess you could say. It's hard to find the right team to use her with, because she does actually work fairly well, not like insanely well, but well enough as a crit DPS, but she does not have any real teams, I feel like, that work incredibly well with her, and she's also lacking a proper relic set, depending on the team that you're using. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what Nilou does, her basic attack is useless. You're never, ever going to use this. The gist of her normal kits would be her A1 passive. If the team is... Wait, no. Sorry. Is it her A1 passive? Yes. Yes, it is. See, I'm not as dumb as I look. It's... If the team is comprised solely of Dendro or Hydro units, at least one of each, she will change your blooms into an enhanced version of them called Bountiful Cores. These Bountiful Cores have a larger explosion radius and also explode very quickly, whereas the normal cores, they take like 10 seconds before they automatically detonate. These ones explode after like 1 second or half a second, even something like that, very quickly. And this is very effective. It's very good, and it's much better typically than normal bloom. I mean, most people don't use normal bloom. You'd usually compare it to like hyper bloom or Burgeon, maybe. Most people don't use Burgeon either, though, to be fair. But it's pretty good. But she doesn't have to do this in her kits. Now, the way you get this is by using her skill and getting the last hit of the skill out, okay? The skill has two variations. There's one variation where you press the skill, okay, you enter the dance stant, and then you finish it off with another skill cast, right? There's like 3 separate dances. You press the skill to enter the dance, and 3 more activations, and whichever button you use to end the final move of the dance is what will choose what stance you have. Now you can see I have a Hydro aura around me. That is from ending the final dance with a skill press. Now if I do that again, but then I end the final hit with a normal attack, you can see it did a different move. And now I have Hydro Infusion onto my normal attacks, and the final attack shoots a big wave of Hydro. Now, that is not normally what you use. It's kind of there as an option for her to be a Hydro DPS, and it's kind of weird because they intend for her to be a bloom-centered character, but then her constellations are sort of centered around as a crit DPS. It's really wonky. Now, if you're C0, it's really hard to make this work, but it's doable. Now, she is a character you can get a free constellation of with, what is this thing called? To Temper Thyself and Journey Far. So using that, I have gotten her to C1. C1 is not needed. All it does for the most part is just give you more damage. C1 is the Hydro Aura in the skill version of the dance. Gets extended from 12 to 18 seconds for 100% uptime. And the normal attack for the Hydro Infusion version of the skill, right, finishing it off with that, you will get 65% damage bonus onto your attack. And that is considered as damage percent bonus, the same as a goblet, so it will be diminished as you stack that sort of value up higher and higher, like, you know, most things in the game. So this 65%, depending on the team, will be closer to like 20 to 35%, but it's still a very nice damage increase to have. So her constellations, after this first one, her C2 does nothing for her crit-based build. It is entirely for her Dendro core-based build. So it's not great for this, but then if you go past it, skill levels and burst levels do nothing for her core-based build, but they do help for the multipliers in her crit-based build. Her C4 gives you energy and damage percent on her burst. The damage percent is also only good in a crit-based build, and her C6 converts HP to crit. So it's really weird. Like a C0 Nilou or even C2 Nilou, they intend for you to do bloom focus on her, but then if you have C6, they really want you to do crit focused. But that also means if you get constellations up to C6 but not quite C6, most of them are useless, right? Like if you're going for a core build, C1 doesn't really do almost anything because you don't really need the extra Hydra aura duration, and then C4 or 3, 4, and 5 are completely worthless. Kinda odd, but she is a sort of earlier character, right? Beginning of 3.0, they were still kind of figuring things out here and there. Now, let's get on to the actual, the builds, right? The teams for her. You kind of got 3 main teams that I feel like are effective enough to really be worth considering. There are, of course, other options, but I don't think they are usually worth considering. The 3 main ones would be a team with Nilou, using her as a on-field Hydro DPS. I mean, of course, that's the case in all these teams. Using her in a mono Hydro team. And that has ups and downs. Then there's also using her in a lunar charge team, which also, it's pretty good and it helps fit into modern content because a lot of the modern game modes focus around lunar charged and such, because I keep saying and such way too much because it's new, right? And so obviously the new stuff is always going to be shield in the endgame modes. So that helps there. And then the last one would be vape, right? Vaping by applying pyro, so you can vape the big hits that Nilou has. The biggest one being the final attack, the big water wave. And it's decent, but they all have issues, I find. And they're not bad, but you'll understand more once I show them. So the first team I want to show is going to be a team based around the vapes. Now, a team with this, you have the issue of you cannot use other Hydra units because you will have too much Hydra application, which means no Farina. And that kind of sucks because Farina is goated. So no Farina, and also that means you cannot use anything associated with Farina. Something like that would be the Marchese set, which is really nice because even though, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, almost forgot, her normal attacks that are infused count as skill attacks. Okay, they count as skill damage. So skill damage bonus will benefit it, but normal attack damage bonus will not. However, it can still proc stuff that is normally procced by doing a normal attack animation. So Yelan and Xingqiu, they work when you're using Nilou. But something like Yunjin, right? Yunjin's flat damage bonus that is added, flat damage that is added to normal attacks, that does not work with Nilou. Very important to note. Now, you can't use Marchese, so that's a big oof, which is unfortunate because 36% crit rate is kind of massive. The 2-piece does nothing, right? Normal and charged attack damage bonus, that's not doing anything for you. But the 36% crit rate more than makes up for it. But not having that means what else are we going to use? Well, there's nothing. There's no good 4-piece that really works here. Except, I mean, you could go with, what is it? The set that's usually used for Emily. The set, it gives you extra damage bonus if the enemy is burning, and we are going to try to keep the enemy burning in this setup, but I feel it's not very consistent, and the 18% attack on the 2-piece is also useless here, so I don't really like it. And then instead of that, our real best option is just going to end up being 2 pieces, which is unfortunate, right? Because like Nymph's Dream, this gives a bunch of attack. Attack doesn't really do much for us. So, I mean, what, you could go 4-piece Desert Pavilion? No, actually, this doesn't give skill damage. I don't know why I thought it did. Most things aren't really going to work here. You could go Shimanawa's, except that also doesn't give skill damage. Why am I so dumb? I keep confusing things. Anyway, you get the point, right? It's kind of hard to find a good set if you try to do this setup here. So we have 2-piece of Wanderer's Troop and 2-piece Golden Troop for EM and skill damage. And we've got a pretty decent amount of elemental mastery. We have elemental mastery timepiece, HP goblets, and crit circlets. The reason we don't have damage percent goblet here is because we're already getting 65% damage bonus from our C1, plus another 20% from the 2-piece, and then we're also going to have Shalone in the team, which is going to give us another 40% when we proc Cinder City. So that's a fair bit of damage percent. Now. The stats are decent. They could be better, but they could be worse. An EM goblet would technically be higher damage here than HP percent, but I don't really have a good enough EM goblet that I feel like it's worth using. And the damage difference isn't going to be that much. 74.6 over 215.9, pretty solid. Now for the team, we're going to have Shalone. I do have her signature, but we will not be using it, trying to make it more relatable, so we are going to be using Favonia's sword. She is C2. This is something I have to note for people that care about it. C1 does absolutely nothing for us, and C2 is basically just 45% HP. I gotta be honest, Shalone C2 is trash, don't ever pull it, but it is something I have to bring up. So it will be a damage increase, but it's not like game changing or anything like that. And her artifacts are pretty straightforward. I have Favonius on because, well, you know, more energy is always nice. We'll also be using Nahida here so that we can get lots of Dendro for lots of burning with Pyro, just to try to keep a consistent Pyro aura to always be getting our vapes. Now we do have her at C2R1, which is, again, this doesn't really matter. We're already going to be not doing like basically any damage on Nahida and have a pretty long duration on our burst, and we're going to get enough energy back anyway. C1 is doing nothing for us here for the most part, and C2 we're burning. All this does is give crit rate on burning. It's not increasing our damage by, like, at best case scenario, this will increase our damage by maybe 1%. So this does not matter. Now, as far as the signature weapon goes, I suppose we can actually just switch this over into sacrificial so it's more relatable, so we'll go ahead and do that. So even though I do have C2 on Shalone and Nahida, it's irrelevant on Nahida and barely does anything on Shalone. I really want to stress that. I wish I could turn constellations off. I can't though, so it is what it is. And then finally, you have to choose a pyro option. For our pyro application, we are going to use Xiangling. Now, she has some major energy issues. Like, major energy issues. It absolutely sucks giant ball ass, which is kind of a yikes. But we have to make do. I do not have Moika, and Durin is not currently out, and I don't even know if I'll be able to get him in time. But, you know, that's kind of our only option. You can use Pyro MC or Dea, but I don't think they have consistent enough Pyro here to keep up, which is why we're using Burning plus Xiangling here. I don't think you probably need Nahida with Xiangling. Just Xiangling might be enough. But Nahida does give us a lot of elemental mastery, and that's very nice for our damage. So we will be using Xiangling with Fav, and she has a fat 241.6% energy recharge. Even then, I'm hoping it's enough. I'm really hoping it's enough. We're gonna go ahead and fight the Dorito boss dude, but first we're probably going to want energy unless we want to, you know, horribly suffer without energy. It's really important that we have Nilou's burst on the opening, which means some inconsistencies if you're doing like the Abyss and you can't get her burst at the start, because we need to be able to apply Hydro at the beginning so that we can trigger Cinder City on our Shalone. So that's kind of a yikes, because the Pyro and the Dendro from Nahida and Xiangling, that's the reason why it might be nice to have someone other than Nahida, but then you might end up, you know, messing up with the reaction. Mona, maybe after the buffs, if you don't skill on Mona, she has enough ER, I could see Mona working, but that's not a thing right now. Mona has not gotten her buffs yet. So, okay, here's the Dorito boss. Now we want to open with Nahida's burst, do not skill on her, then we Nilou burst to apply the Hydro. Now we can skill and burst on Shalone so that we can get Cinder City, past Xiangling stuff and Nahida skill, and then we start damaging on Nilou. 90k? I mean, of course we miss a crit. The damage isn't the worst ever. You see, we can't even kill this guy quite, which is a little annoying. it's something. It's something. I think this team would be much better. Oh, I never even went over Nilou's weapon. Okay, we'll get to Nilou's weapon in just a sec. This team would be much better if I had, you know, better pyro application without having to use Xiangling. Because she's so dookie doo-doo that you have to build all in on energy just for her to work in this team and have fav weapons. You can see we did not quite get our burst back, but we should have had we gone through the full rotation again. But she's very Plus, again, like I had said earlier, we kind of need a burning sometimes for her to keep up the application. I might have just messed it up when I had done that testing stuff. But Nahida's still nice anyways because she gives the very nice massive elemental mastery buff. Now, it's kind of an oof, to say the least, and the consistency against bosses, or anything really, is very much lacking, so I don't really like burning Nilou, not in its current state, especially with not having a good artifact set. I forgot to go over the weapon earlier, but we are using Xilonin's signature weapon. Sorry, Chiori's signature weapon. See, I know how to read. Now, there are a few different weapon options that you can use with her. It's a little questionable, but it depends on the team if you have a really good one or not. If you're using her and you're using a 4-star weapon for this sort of setup, you kind of screwed. There's not really a lot of good options here, really. If you want more consistent burst and you want the damage increase, I guess if you have Festering Desire, if you're a OG player, you could use Fav just for more energy to always have her burst back, but then you do lose out on like a massive amount of bonus damage you could be getting from a good passive and a good substat for your damage. The problem is that normal attack stuff doesn't work. Like, we can't use the Black Sword, it's not doing anything for us. We can't use Kageuchi because attack percent's doing nothing for us. Calamity of Eshu, I mean, we don't have Shielder, but even if we did, this is normal attack damage. So she's very restrictive in what weapons you can use. She does have a few good 5-star weapon options though. Now, firstly, there's Jade Cutter. Low base attack with high crit rate, very nice. But if you're using a 4-piece set that gives a lot of crit, you can easily overkill on it. But it also has 20% HP in the passive, the 1.2% HP to attack conversion, that does nothing for us. My two favorites though are Splendor of Tranquil Waters and Iraku Misugiri. I butchered those names. So Splendor of Tranquil Waters is Nahida's signature weapon. It makes it so that when our HP increases or decreases, we get 8% elemental skill damage, stacking up to 3 times. That is 24% damage. Very nice, and we're doing all skill damage. The other half is when teammates' HP increases or decreases, we get 14% max HP, and she's HP scaler, and it stacks up to 2 times for 28% max HP. Both of these effects are only consistently going to happen if you have Farina on the team. And if you're not doing a burning team, or sorry, a vape team, Farina actually works pretty well. So if you have Farina and you don't have Farina's C4, so you're likely not using her signature, and you want to use her signature on Nilou, it's a very good option. And it's got low basic attack with high crit damage at 88.2. Very good. But again, it restricts you to Farina in the team. The other really good option is Chiori's signature weapon. So Iraku gives, again, low base attack, high crit with crit damage at 88.2, so the same main substat. And then the passive is 16% normal attack damage, useless, but 24% skill damage. And after a teammate deals geo damage, it will double this effect for 15 seconds. That's pretty solid. That's 48% elemental skill damage, right? So one of these gives us 24% skill damage and 28% HP, while the other one gives us 48% skill damage. It also technically gives 20% defense. We don't really care about that though. This weapon requires a teammate to deal geo damage though, which isn't too big of a deal if you have Xilonin's, because Xilonin can trigger it, and Xilonin is a very good teammate for a lot of Nilou teams where you're using her as a crit DPS. Either one of them works as long as you can get them to trigger. If neither one of them can be triggered, I'd say Iraku is better because you will still get at least the 24% elemental damage buff. Whereas if you aren't using Farina, you're basically never going to get any part of this passive to work on Nilou. So that's definitely worth mentioning. In that team that we were using at Burning, right, we were using the Iraku, obviously. I mean, we went to it, right? Because we have Xilonin in the team. Now, Other than that, there are the other two teams I had mentioned previously, which would be the Lunar Charge team and the Mono Hydro team. Definitely random cut. So the Lunar Charge team, it's got its ups and downs. The first main up would be the relic set. You can now actually use a proper relic set, assuming you set up properly for it. And that would be the Knight of the Skies Unveiling. This is a new relic set that came out with Nodcry. And it is not actually exclusive to Nodcry units, it's exclusive to Nodcry units being in the party. So the 2 pieces 80 EM, pretty universal for large characters. And the 4 piece is when nearby party members trigger lunar reactions, if the equipping character is on the field, gain the Gleaming Moon Intense effect for 4 seconds. Increases crit rate by 15 or 30% when the party's moon sign is Nascent Gleam or Ascendant Gleam, respectively. Also, all party members' lunar reaction damage is increased by 10% for each different Gleaming Moon effect that the party has, which would just be this and the support set from Nodcry. So if we have 1 Nodcry character in the team, we can get 15 crit rate, and if we have 2, we can get 30 crit rate. Fairly decent. So we are going to, of course, slap that on, but the downside is you gotta have 2 Nodcry characters if you want to make full use of this set, which can be a little annoying at times if you can actually manage to get the characters, because right now we only have, what, 1 4-star character at the time of recording this. Granted, Yehoda is about to come out, so there is that, but still a bit of a yowzes at times. I don't know why I put crits damage on. You can still stick with the same weapon depending on who you have in the team. So with Lunar Charged, of course, we have Anefa, so she's already going to be one of the characters. If you only care about the 15 crit rate, you can just go Anefa and then have Farina Shalonen. Now, otherwise, I would recommend going not Farina, but yes, Shalonen, because we would not have a healer. You'd go Shalonen plus another Nodcry character, which for the future, Columbina could be it, Yehoda could be it. Right now, the only real option, though, would be Ino. Now, with Ino, I do have her at C6, and she currently has the support set, so do keep that in mind. Her build's pretty straightforward, just EM. Support Nodcry set. Doesn't really take much more explanation than that. So I will go ahead and show both variations with 1 or 2 Nodcry characters. Now let's slap in our glorious wife, Anefa. Even though I actually don't really like her character. Sorry to the people that love Anefa. I don't hate her. I just don't love her. So here we go. We got the 2 characters on the team. Beautiful. I should probably go over my Anefa build as well. You already saw the Shalonen build earlier. My Anefa build is very mediocre. Favonius and then 4-piece Gilded, just because, you know, it's the best set on her for the most part. The reason I have Favonius plus decent ER in general is just that I can get her burst back, because her burst back, or using her burst, does give us elemental mastery to the on-field character. That's pretty nice to have. So we're going to face this guy again. I really kind of wish I had done the robot chicken to begin with. But oh well, it is what it is. Now we kind of have to commit. Oh well. I just said oh well like 97 times. The order you do this in is, there's probably a best way, but I don't know, I just kind of start whacking stuff. We're doing much less damage from Nilou herself, but we are still going to be doing decent damage because the Lunar Charge, you can see it does pretty big procs. We're almost able to kill. If I would have actually restarted my rotation, we might have. Will we believe? No, almost so close yet so far. I had to cut that because I started coughing. We almost got the kill. If I had actually, you know, switched back to an F and skilled again, we would have had it. So, you know, just don't be dumb like me. Still, though, pretty good damage, considering Nilou's not meant to be forced in this position at her current constellation level. It's not the best thing ever, but it does mean you have Lunar Charge for the endgame modes where it's buffed. And her having higher EM here, yes, you could switch from EM to HP. I do not have a good HP piece here, and the EM does still end up helping our Lunar Charge numbers go up. So you'd probably be better with an HP piece here, but it's not too big of a difference, I don't think. My only problem with this team is that we're not really doing a lot of damage through Nilou herself, right? Like, at that point, why wouldn't you just use a different character, right? I could be using, if you actually pull them, you could just use Lynn's on this team. You could just use any other Hydro character like Mona. You would probably do even more damage by having Yelan on field. That's probably better. So it's kind of like, why do we have Nilou in this case? So that's why I don't really care much for this. I really wish she had a more solid team where she's the crit DPS. Now, the other one, which was with one Nodcry unit, I will show that as well since I said I would. In this case, we go with Nilou, Inefa, Shalonen, and Farina. We will be losing 15% crit rate because of that. I did this in the wrong order, oh well. Now, my Farina does have Favonius, and she is C2. This is, I know, I wish I could turn Constellations off. Unlike Farina and Shalonen, this does play a pretty massive role. It's gonna massively increase Farina's personal damage. It still won't be that much because we have Favonius on, but it's worth noting, and we get fanfare much faster, as well as having a higher cap in general. She is triple crown. Here are her artifacts, fairly average, but I do need to mention that. Now, this team is still going to be kind of like, you know, Nilou's not really the one doing all the damage. She's here, but she's not really insane. I don't know why I did it in that order. I'm kind of dumb. I just did this in like the dumbest order possible. We're still going to max out our fan. No! I messed up the rotation because I didn't switch to Nilou like I should have. You can see the damage is significantly better though. We botched our rotation horribly. We're doing way higher damage with Nilou, like 50% higher damage because the crazy amount of damage bonus Farina gives. But I mean, we do have a C2 Farina, so it's kind of hard to really say it's a good option, right? Comparing a C2 Farina to a C6 Ino, it's not exactly fair, or at least I'd say most people probably wouldn't say that it is fair. So still a good option though. Now the last option is the mono hydro team, and this also comes with its downsides, as basically all of these teams seem to. Now with this, we will basically always be using Farina in a mono hydro team, which means it enables us to run Marechaussee for the extra 36% crit rate, which is absolutely massive amounts of crit rate. And I definitely think that's worth it. I do wish mono teams had a little more value in them just being one element, right? Like you give up reactions entirely for not a whole lot in return. Depending on the element, mono teams can end up being very strong anyways, but they do still end up sort of, you know, struggling a bit here and there. So it really depends. Now our crit rate is going to be sitting at a solid 76.9% and almost 300 crit damage. And then we'll have Shalonen in the team still. I could take her out, but we'll go ahead and just switch to this. And what I like about Tranquil Waters, had to read that to remember its name, is it matches Nilou's skin so well. Look at this. Look at this. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Glorious. And then for those cultured fellows out there, she is indeed barefoot. Yes, I know. Amazing. She is sitting at 114 EM, which is kind of a waste because I have EM on these pieces, even though it's not doing much. So our pieces could be better, but they could be worse. We got the, you know, you saw crit damage, HP. Very straightforward. I already showed these characters. Now for mono hydro, you have several options of what the hydro are going to be. Nilou's a given, she's the DPS. Farina's a given, she's Farina. But then you need a healer, and if you're Farina C2, you're really going to want a team-wide healer. Shalonen herself doesn't usually end up being enough. So if you have a C0 Farina, or C1 even, I would recommend going with Jean. She is a very solid option here. And she's a standard 5-star. She may be a 5-star, but she's a standard 5-star, so she works very nicely. Other than Jean, you have options like, this is not it, Sayu. Sayu works well. She's kind of just a 4-star Jean, but she still is a viable option. I do wish we had more team-wide healers because there's not really a lot of great options here. But oh yeah, for those cultured individuals, by cultured I mean they actually pulled the cutest character in the game named Sejuine. She works really well here. She's an incredible team white healer, and she will be giving more damage to Farina. And if you have her C2, I think there's like 4 people in existence that pulled it. It will reduce enemy resistance by 35%. The best option, even at C0 though, if you have a C2 Farina, will always be Shalonen. So I will show it with Shalonen first. There becomes an issue though, okay? Because the last slot, the best option is likely Yelan. I have a C2R1 Yelan. That kind of skews the numbers a bit, just a tad bit. So that's a bit of a yikes. I think most people probably have a C0 Yelan using Fab, and that's really, really good for the 4th slot, and that's what I would recommend using, but I do not have that. I can still switch to Fav. The C1 in this mini of a Hydro team is irrelevant, and I can just not use it, and the extra Hydro application from C2 isn't doing much. It will just be a roughly 20% damage increase, okay, by having C2, okay? I won't use C1, and C2's only like a 20% damage increase and only on Yelan. So keep that in mind. It's not like the end of the world. Here, I guess I can balance out by removing our piece on Yelan. Yeah, actually, you know, yeah, that tell me if you think that's fair. Okay, we'll remove that, and now her stats are absolutely botched, so it's much more of a fair comparison. And then Shalonen still C2 in Farina C2. Again, Shalonen C2 is completely worthless. Do not get it. And we have so much HP stacked right now that this is going to be very small damage increase. Do not worry about that. And besides, I don't have the best pieces on my Farina, but we have good enough pieces. So let us fight this guy again. What's kind of funny about this team though, is we have so much Hydro here that the amount of particles would be more than enough to run Farina on her signature weapon, even though we don't have her C4 for energy. But we're using it on Nilou. Now, yes, I could go to Chiori's signature and run Farina's signature on herself, but that's another 5-star added to the mix. Plus, then Farina's doing a lot more damage, and I don't really want that to be the case. So we will just be doing it with what I've shown. Obviously, you Farina skill, Farina burst, Shalonen skill, Shalonen burst, plus the normals, do 1 skill and then the burst on Yelan, and then you just start attacking on Nilou. Now, she's doing a solid 53,000 damage. Very, very nice. Not as much as the almost 100k on the Vapes in the other team, but still very, very nice damage. And we pulverized the boss. But we have... I really wish that I could pull out the constellations, because no matter how much I say, there's still probably going to be someone that is salty that I have the constellations, right? Yelan, I balanced it out enough. I think, you know, I think that's pretty fair, but I can't remove the C2 Farina or the C2 Shalonen, even if it is a minor increase in damage. It is still going to be there. But let's assume you use Jean instead. So let's put Jean in the team, and then let's use a slightly worse character than Yelan to be more fair, since we have a C2 Farina, right? Just trying to balance it out. We'll use... I would say Mona, but her uptime is so bad. But after Mona's buff, she might actually be a fairly solid character. Is that today? No, it is not. So we cannot use her right now. In which case, you could go for another just sort of setup that's kind of like the Lunar Charged, but we already did that, and I don't know, I don't really want to do that again. So the 4th slot kind of becomes a little questionable, like there's not a lot of good options outside of Xingqiu. So we'll go ahead and just use Xingqiu. He is, of course, an incredible battery, so you could still use Farina's signature, but again, we're not going to. Xingqiu here is going to do some off-field damage. My Xingqiu is built terribly. He's a horrible Xingqiu build. Okay, horrible Xingqiu build. And he is C6 though, and that matters because he can reduce Hydro Res by 15%. And then, of course, VV on Jean. Our Jean is sitting on, here we go, Favonius, 4-piece VV with a very mediocre build, to say the least, and she is C2. Now, the attack speed you get from C2, normal attack speed does not affect how fast Nilou attacks, from what I can tell, so that's a little unfortunate. It would be actually really cool if it did, but it doesn't. So Can't really do a whole lot about that. Anyways, let us run this beautiful, beautiful team back. Farina skill, Farina burst, and then this time you're going to want to Xingqiu next because VV has low uptime, so we don't want to be proccing it right away. And then we use Jean and VV, and we go into Nilou. Our damage is lower, not too much though. On our crits, we're still hitting about 42,000 and we'll kill just fine. I'm not using my burst here because kind of hard to fit Nilou's burst in the rotation unless you do at the very end for skill infusion. And well, the guy died before our skill infusion ended. Overall, I would say Nilou's best option as a crit on-field DPS is Mono Hydro. It's the most consistent, it's the easiest to play. It's got the best option for an artifact set if you use Farina by going with Marche. It's just all around the best option in my opinion. And I mean, see, as I had said at the beginning, C1 is free on Nilou, which is very nice. And I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say. I feel like this team has so much potential. Sorry. Nilou as a crit has so much potential. Words are hard. No, I'm not cutting that. Get clapped. Has so much potential if we just had better teammates. We really, like, if we had a better teammate for enabling Pyro and giving good buffs for Vapes, that would be great for a more consistent, better damage Vape setup for Nilou. If we had a better Lunar Charge team that could make more use of Nilou herself or something, that could work. Maybe Columbino will be good for Nilou. There's a lot of room to grow. But right now, it's just sort of there. I still like it. I still use it. It's still fun. And I will still use her as a crit DPS over a Bloom DPS because it's funnier. But I do have to say, as a whole, I'm not really sure I can recommend it. Now, there is an upside to using Nilou as a Hydro crit on-field DPS. And that would be as if you're a waifu collector, okay? Are you the waifu player? You only pull the waifus? You are no husbando kind of guy? In that case, you don't have a lot of options for on-field Hydro crit DPS characters. Because a lot of them are not Hydro, okay? Or sorry, not women. Tartaglia. He's outdated. I think he's still better than people give him credit for, but he's a dude. Ayato. He's a dude. Nouvelette. He's a dude. Kokomi. She works, but she's a little questionable. And then if you end up trying to put Lunar Charge in the team too with a Nefa, she's got like negative a million crits, so she totally fucks up your Lunar Charge reactions. There's Mona, but Mona's really clunky. She is about to get massively buffed, assuming you have Constellations. She is still clunky, and I don't think most people have her C6. I would still, any day of the week, use a C6 Mona over a C1 Nilou after her buff. But again, most people do not have C6 Mona. You could technically just use Yelan Xingqiu on field, but that's not really making use of them very well. There's Milani. She does not work well in a mono Hydro team like this, or most teams outside of her specific Vape teams. And also as a C1 Milani haver, dear God, I hate playing Milani. She's so clunky and so inconsistent. Like, I'm serious. If you use Milani, if you have Milani, then you know the pain that is trying to reset an Abyss Chamber 47 fucking times. So, yeah, no. So your real best option, unless you don't have, or unless you got C6 Mona, Nilou's kind of your real only waifu option here. Of course, Nouvelette is going to be better, and probably Ayato and Tartaglia too. But they're dudes, and I do like using the Whammons instead. I mean, look at how cute Nilou is. She's adorable. And if you disagree, then you are objectively wrong. So, got him. Anyways, that's kind of it. I just wanted to show off Nilou as a crit DPS because it's entertaining to me and, you know, stuff. If you have any thoughts or any good ideas in the comments, let me know. If you've used this team or used Nilou like this in the Vape team with Moika, does it work? Let me know. I don't have Moika. Sad face. Maybe I'll get Durin and that'll work, and maybe I'll do a video on that. But that is to be seen, to be determined. Anyways, if you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe, possibly. Adios.